So the Ohio State Buckeyes have had some massive turnover since winning the national championship. Jim Knowles left for Penn State, Chip Kelly went back to the NFL to join the Raiders, and we already found out that Brian Hartline will now be taking over the play calling duties next season, and Matt Pratricia was brought in to be the defensive coordinator. And then we also found out that Ryan Day received a massive extension, which are words I never thought would come out of my mouth just 5 or 6 weeks ago, because he had maybe the biggest redemption arc in college football history. In this video, I want to talk about what these new hires mean for the Buckeyes. I want to talk about some of the up-and-coming talent as well as the returning players, and why this program really is becoming a powerhouse and will be for at least the next decade. But before I begin, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like and subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds, plus you can always change your mind. We are on the road to 50,000 subscribers, and with your support, I believe that we can get there super fast. So I think what we have learned over the last week or so about Ohio State is that no matter who leaves or what happens, they can always bring in a replacement that could be even better than what they initially had. So let's first start off talking about Matt Pratricia. He's a longtime head coach in the NFL. He's a longtime assistant of the Patriots, kind of had a legendary career there. He's done basically everything there is to do in terms of football. He knows everything. But for Ohio State, I was kind of curious where they would go with hiring after Jim Knowles left, because it seemed like there was kind of a youth movement going on the offensive side of the football. But getting Matt Pratricia means a lot. He has a ton of experience, and I think he's going to be willing to try a bunch of different things out. He's going to try some of the concepts from the NFL. He's going to try man. He's going to stack the box and apply pressure with this ultra talented D-line. He's going to do it all. And the great thing about the new expanded playoff format is that in the regular season, you really can experiment and figure things out. A loss from making a mistake isn't going to bite you in the long run, and it won't ruin the season. I also really do think hiring Brian Hartline was a great move. In my last video I made about Ohio State, I talked about how the Buckeyes needed to do whatever possible to keep Hartline around because of his recruiting ability, and sure enough, they did. He used to be a wide receivers coach, and he knows how to bring in the best talent year in and year out. And now that he gets to call the plays, I expect him to utilize the talent he brought in. Because I know earlier in the season in 2024, the Buckeyes with Chip Kelly played very reserved. It was like they refused to use Jeremiah Smith and all the talent they had to the max potential they could, but now I expect Hartline to go all out and leave nothing behind. And then for Ryan Day, I think he got the camel off his back. Obviously he's got to beat Michigan, that is a must, and it took him a while, but I think he now knows what to do. It's a pretty simple formula. He needs to coach with no fear, he needs to make decisions with no fear, he needs to get rid of any sense of being reserved. I don't care if it's 4th and 3 on the 50-yard line, you go for it. I don't care if the opponent has a good defense, you attack through the air and be aggressive early and often, you get the ball to your best players, because when you open up a game attacking, even if it doesn't work, it forces the defense to adjust, and then that is when later in the game you can break a simple run or screen loose to the house like we saw Henderson do against Texas in the semifinals. And then player-wise, let's talk about some of the turnover. Obviously, Will Howard is headed to the draft, and so is Jack Sawyer, Henderson, and a few others, but honestly, Ohio State may be even more talented than ever. Some of the returning players include Jeremiah Smith, who had one of the best seasons that college football had ever seen, and if the offense got him more involved in the regular season, he may have actually broken some records, but that's okay, because he's got another shot to do so in 2025. Other guys that are returning for more include Carnell Tate. There have been teams trying to do everything to steal him away, but it looks like he's committed. Tate in 2024 was Mr. Reliable. He was often the guy that would come through on big plays because all the attention was on Smith, and he had 733 yards and 4 touchdowns. Brandon Inniss Jr. is returning, but this season should be his first crack at showcasing his talent. He is arguably the most established prospect in the class of 2023, and he burst onto the scene making plays as an 8th grader down in South Florida and never left, racking up accolade after accolade. He's listed as a wide receiver and will likely get paid one day to catch passes. Well, I guess technically he already does now with NIL, but you know what I'm trying to say. I meant on Sundays. And he could also be labeled as just a straight up alpha, as he's someone that absolutely hates to lose and will do whatever it takes to win. The O-line definitely has some moving parts, but that's completely normal, and whoever ends up out there Hopefully they can take some of the momentum from the end of last season and implement it right away. Behind center, Julian Sayin is projected to be the starting quarterback in 2025, and I am so excited to watch him play because he has been hyped up for a while now. These were his final stats in high school: 7,970 yards, 86 touchdowns, a 140.6 rating, and an over 70% completion rate. That is absurd, and I'm sure he has been itching to get his opportunity to showcase himself at this level. On the defensive end, there is a lot of turnover, but one thing remains: Caleb Downs, arguably the best defensive player in all of college football, will be back. He's a guy that you can build a defense around, and it's just crazy. Yeah, there is all this turnover from winning a championship, but Ohio State has the best player in all of college football on both the offensive and defensive end. I also am very excited as a Buckeyes fan myself that Sonny Styles will be returning. I think he's extremely underrated. He's a senior, he's going to be one of the most experienced players on the team and on the field at all times, and in 2024 he had about 50 solo tackles and was just a field general. Anyways, moving on, now let's talk schedule, because things are about to get real interesting right from the jump in week 1. The Buckeyes start out the season in the shoe against the Texas Longhorns. The Longhorns are going to be looking for revenge, and because a week 1 loss won't ruin the season for either team, I expect both teams to go all out and hold nothing back. Should be a very fun game. And following that one is 2 easy games against Grambling and Ohio. Those games will basically serve as a practice to go over what went right and what went wrong against Texas, and then after that it's Washington on the road. That definitely will be an interesting game. It's hard to travel out west and get a dub, but obviously Washington is not the team they were after Kalen DeBoer left, so that game should be a win. After that is a run of Big Ten matchups. First is Minnesota back at home, then the Buckeyes will go on the road at Illinois. Usually that is one of those dog days of summer games where it is low scoring, but the Buckeyes grind it out and win by 2 touchdowns, and then the Buckeyes will go on the road to Madison to face Wisconsin. And that always creates a tough matchup, but the Badgers have kind of struggled the last few seasons. And then game number 8 is the second real test of the season against Penn State. Obviously at this point, Ohio State to James Franklin is like what Michigan is to Ryan Day. It doesn't seem like Penn State is going to break through the wall anytime soon, and Ohio State is just going to have to use that same formula that they've been using, and all should be good. And then the end of the season is actually pretty interesting. It's Purdue, then UCLA, and then the Rutgers, who just seem to never be good, and then it is Michigan and Ann Arbor. The one game of those 4 that I think could be a trap game is UCLA, because after Penn State, I'm sure all eyes will be on Michigan, because everyone knows this team can't afford to lose to them again. But UCLA is a new addition to the Big Ten. They will be looking to make a statement, so that is a game that Ohio State can't overlook. But overall, I expect the Buckeyes to win 11 games. They could go undefeated, but it would be tough not to slip up at all, and honestly, they don't need to be perfect anymore with the new format. So I think the Buckeyes are set up to win it all once again, and they have the talent and the coaching to get it done. Let me know in the comments below how you are feeling about all this new coaching that was brought in. I know I didn't get too deep into things in this video. I'm saving that for closer to the season. But thank you all so much if you made it to this point in the video, and if you haven't yet and enjoyed, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe because your support truly does mean the world, and let me know what you would like to see next, and until then, I will see you all later.